Asians are having a moment. They really are.
That's your bumper sticker.
Well,
Andrew Yang.
Crazy
Asians are having a moment.
Ali Wong, Joe Coy. I feel like this is the time.
I think you're a New York guy. You speak to a lot of different types of New Yorkers. I think
Squid Game, Parasite. I mean, those aren't all.
Those are getting worse.
Those are Korean. I know that's Korean, but I'm saying Asian. Shogun is on TV.
All right, you're digging deeper.
I'm just saying Asians are. This is your time, baby.
I mean, I do have a bunch of friends who are getting more work than they.
That's all I'm saying. Strike while the samurai sword is hot.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
I've never seen a silence say I regret coming here so much.
No, I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a lot of friends who are in those shows.
They're great shows. I don't see the problem with what I'm saying.
In this video, we're going to look at episode 175 of We Might Be Drunk featuring former presidential candidate Andrew Yang. This is one of the funniest podcasts featuring a politician I've seen, and it's thanks to Norman not holding back.
Comedy.
Over the last few years, comedy has spiked in popularity. Ticket sales for live shows have skyrocketed to nearly $1 billion, and nearly every comedian has a podcast. So, naturally, politicians are trying to capitalize on the boom as well. RFK was just on Matt and Shane's secret podcast. Matt and Shane took it easy on RFK and tried to be as respectable as possible. But the same can't be said for Mark Norman, as he was in true form when hosting Andrew Yang. You could tell it was going to be a good interview from the moment Yang walked on set.
Here with our guest,
Sorry, guys.
Andrew Yang. No,
we keep it loose.
Coming through, yeah.
Hey, guys, I hear there's drinking on this podcast.
Yes.
You don't drink, though, right?
Maybe some cursing.
Yes.
Few
whatever you
fucks
want.
Given here and there.
Do you drink or no?
I don't really drink very much. I'm one of those people that if I drink, I go to sleep.
Aha.
It's probably a good thing in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, lucky you. It keeps me up all night. And the blow. This might be why you lost. You're dressed like hell. Come on, man. I'm just kidding.
I could have gone either way.
All right. No.
I thought if I had like jacket on, I'd feel very out of place.
That's true. No, you did the right thing.
As down to earth as Yang seems, you can tell he is always considering the political aspect of the conversation. Instead of wearing a suit, he dressed like what he thought was relatable to the fans of We Might Be Drunk. I love that Norman immediately talked about doing blow and then proceeds to rag on Yang for dressing like garbage, even though Yang's outfit looks like something Norman would wear. There's several moments in the podcast where Norman cracks a great joke and Yang doesn't acknowledge it at all, and you can see that he gets really uncomfortable.
3 overlapping fields, and I try and explain this to people: politics, comedy, professional wrestling.
Whoa.
Those 3 things intersect
Jesse Ventura.
in very, very serious ways.
Yeah.
So, Jesse Ventura, I mean, Trump was a wrestling villain, if you
That's
actually
true.
go back to
Remember.
it.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
kind of anti-hero hanging out with McMahon and the crew.
Yeah, old shit chest McMahon.
People talk about The Rock all the time running for president. I mean, it's in part
that's
because
right.
he can just go in and command a crowd.
Even though I never heard about the McMahon allegations, I knew what Norman was talking about when he called him shit chest. I immediately thought of Matt and Shane's podcast with McAfee.
Talking about you've got dumped on from higher up in a hammock and had the mega splash.
Jesus Christ almighty.
Any other guest would have delved deeper into what Norman was saying, but Yang is in political mode. I do agree with Yang about politics being just like wrestling. It makes me think of the days when the NWO split into 2 factions. Fans were split too. At the end of the day though, while us peasants were arguing over who is better, they were all really on the same team, capitalizing off of our engagement, i.e. politics. In the next clip, Morril asks Yang about how to get more police in New York, and Yang bombs the question.
If you look at what's going on with cop enrollment right now, it's going down, retention's going down. The tragic death the other day is going to hurt at this level. I attended a cop's funeral when I was running for mayor, and like you see how how much they feel it. And a lot of folks are looking up saying, wait, like I can actually become a cop in another community and, like it's a better situation. And that's what you have to prevent, really, because you can't have cops leaving and then not replace them.
You got to work on your act. This is bombing. But no, you're right. You're 100% right.
Norman is truly a gem. I love that he treats Yang like a normal person. You can see Norman's facial expression change as soon as he hears Yang talk about a cop's funeral. Later on in the podcast, Shane Gillis gets brought up because Yang was one of the only politicians to reach out to Shane at the time and offer him a platform.
So when the news hit about Shane Gillis, I also, first I was like, who is this guy? And then I started watching his clips and whatnot, and I was like, this guy's no malignant like
No.
this guy's like, you know, he's like
He's a
like
chubby drunk.
yeah, he's like a dude from Central PA who's like you know,
Great
like,
dude.
just like trying stuff out.
And a killer comedian.
Yeah, I mean he's I mean, talk about an ascent over this last couple of years. I actually
He's got a scent. Sorry.
smells great. Shane, you smell great.
I think it's cool that Yang had Shane on when he was perceived as being a racist. Overall, though, I think it was just a political move. Even though he stood up for Shane, he wasn't willing to denounce SNL for firing him.
They should be on the chopping block more than Shane, because you've never had an Asian. You've actually done a bad thing. He said a bad thing. To me, that's more offensive. I don't give a shit either way. I don't want anybody getting fired. But I'm just saying, if you're comparing the two wrongs, to me, not having an Asian is worse than saying a slur as a joke.
Oh, it goes back to the fact that all these
Just
folks
saying.
are, you know, it's like no show's gonna be perfect. No,
Of
humor's gonna be
course.
perfect. Certainly no comedian.
It's a comedy show.
I don't think Yang wanted to say anything negative about SNL because he hopes to host it someday as a presidential or mayoral candidate. One of the funniest parts of the entire podcast was when Yang was talking about visiting with Elon Musk and getting a tour of SpaceX. Norman thought it was the appropriate time to ask about Epstein.
And did you have any time to hang out with him?
Sure, I got a tour of SpaceX and
Oh, wow.
hung out with him and Grimes.
All right. What about Epstein?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I missed that one.
We would have all said yes to that plane ride. Let's be honest. Before we knew, I mean.
Happily, that was before my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the soundbite he wants. Andrew Yang says, yes, he would have gone on Epstein's plane.
Before. I mean, I would have gone to P. Diddy's too. I'm just, 5 years ago.
Yang definitely wasn't comfortable with some of Norman's jokes, but he did a really good job of keeping a straight face and getting through it. That is until Norman went full-on Asian joke mode.
I think you should run again.
I agree.
Thanks, guys.
Asians are having a moment. They really are.
That's your bumper sticker.
Look,
Andrew Yang.
Crazy
Asians are
Rich
having a
Asians,
moment.
Ali Wong, Joe Coy. I feel like this is the time.
I think you're a New York guy. You speak to a lot of different types of New Yorkers. I think
Squid Game, Parasite.
That's not-
I mean, those aren't all.
This is getting worse.
Those are Korean. I know that's Korean, but I'm saying Asian. Shogun is on TV.
All right, you're digging deeper.
I'm just saying Asians are. This is your time, baby.
I mean, I do have a bunch of friends who are getting more work than they
That's all I'm saying. Strike while the samurai sword is hot.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
I've never
and
seen a
roll.
silence say I regret coming here so much.
No, I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a lot of friends who are in those shows.
They're great shows. I don't see the problem with what I'm saying.
I think it's hilarious that Norman was able to make a politician at loss for words. Yang didn't know how to respond. Even Morril was at a loss for words. I don't think there's anything wrong with what Norman was saying. He was just being Norman. The guy's catchphrase is comedy. While Yang was at a loss for words, he was still cool enough to say some of his friends watch Shogun. But for whatever reason, he really didn't like Norman's jokes about outsourcing Secret Service protection of presidential candidates. The topic came up because they were talking about RFK not receiving protection as an independent candidate.
There'd probably be three things that come to mind for me as to why the government would resist. Number one is precedent, which is like any independent candidate who runs and gets above a certain threshold to be like, hey, now I get Secret Service. Number two is it actually adds legitimacy to that person, because if they're walking around campaigning and then there's Secret Service rotating around, it seems like awfully presidential.
Sure.
And number three,
Interesting.
that protection layer is very, very expensive.
I see.
Like you're talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars a day.
Yeah, who's
Oh,
paying
wow.
for that?
And so it would be a government expense.
Damn.
Wow.
And so those are, I think, like or it could just be like, they don't give a shit and they blah blah blah. But
Could you outsource it? Get a couple migrants? Hey, here's a cool 50 if you stand near me.
um,
I'm just saying we outsource everything else. Why not? These guys need work.
Yeah.
As the podcast continues, Norman's jokes get better and better, and Yang's facial expressions get worse. He really didn't know how to respond to the migrant joke. It gets even worse when they begin to discuss Jewish AI.
We need plumbers. We need
and
roofers.
that shit's very hard to automate.
Exactly.
You know, like, can you imagine trying to get a robot HVAC repair person? Impossible.
Impossible.
But like a robot accountant, like pretty doable.
Easy. And that was
One of those Jewish robots.
yeah, they don't work Saturday.
Again, I have to give props to Norman and Morril for sticking to their show's format. Matt and Shane's podcast with RFK wasn't bad, but there were no jokes at all like this. Instead, they basically just gave RFK a platform to speak. Norman and Morril were themselves throughout the entire podcast, all the way through to the end when they decided to try out some of their comedy bits.
Do you guys want to work on any bits and run them by Mr. Yang to punch it up?
I'll do one. I can
Give me one.
You go one. I'll do one too.
Okay, I ran into a friend. He saw me. You know that friend you hate running into, but you run into. You know what it is too. I'll tell you off air. No, it's not you. But I run into this guy. He goes, "I saw you on a date having an ice cream cone like a little homo." And I was like, first of all, I was on a date with a woman. Second of all, how homophobic are you that you can't enjoy ice cream?
Right.
And third, how gay would he think I was if he knew I was really eating sorbet? So, but I want to do a thing about like the idea that you're so homophobic you can't enjoy dessert. Like no sweets. That's how close you are to being gay.
Right.
Like you're at a restaurant. They're like, "We have a lovely tiramisu this evening." He's like, "Nice try." I guess it's because of the licking, the cone.
It's
but I'm
the
like,
licking.
I'm like,
Because a banana, he might do the same thing. So it might not be sweets.
But it lasts longer if you lick it.
Uh-oh, that's the gayest thing I've ever heard.
So even though Yang didn't give his opinion on Morril's bit, at least he smiled at the start of it. Same can't be said for when Norman tried out his bit.
Mine's a little darker, so buckle up there, Yangy. So I was thinking, my friend, she's very new age, hippy-dippy, holistic, and she's got 2 kids, and all they eat is free-range organic chicken. But all the kids do is play video games. So I thought it was interesting that kids have become cooped up, whereas they used to be free-range, and now chickens are free-range where they used to be cooped up. We flipped chickens and kids.
Yeah, like cannibals. Something about cannibals are like, this kid never moved.
Well, that's where I was going to go.
Kids are basically veal now.
Kids are veal.
Yeah.
They were just shoving food and chemicals down their throat, and they don't move. They have no muscle mass. You know, it's like like veal. But I went file. So I one of these elite files have a menu like, I want the free range kids who've been running around and riding bikes. I don't want a fat kid.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going to do some diddling.
I would lose fat kid. I want a fat kid.
Diddle, squeeze, molest.
I want the fat. I don't want that fat kid.
Yeah, he's pumped full of chemicals and cereal and junk food and no muscle.
This guy's going to run for president again, you guys. What are you doing?
I'm doing a bit. Thoughts, Yang?
At this point in the podcast, I think Yang was just ready to get out of there. He was trying his best to keep a straight face throughout Norman's bit. He had to think it was funny, but in the end, he's a political figure and it's probably not in his best interest to laugh out loud at jokes. Norman and Morril had to sense it. So again, I have to give them props because even after all of this, Norman is still cracking jokes.
Oh, Houston Improv, Irvine
You're
Improv.
You're really doing comedy.
Cobb's Comedy Club, Denver Comedy Works. Look at you.
Wow, I didn't know those dates were still up there, but they were a minute ago. Yeah,
We're one and the same. We could be doing the same.
We are one and the same,
gigs.
guys.
These politicians, they're taking our jobs.
You have little to fear.
I know. I heard your police junk.
It's crazy that in just a few short years, comedy has reached a level where politicians are choosing to go on podcasts in order to expand their presence. Again, it was good to see Norman not holding back. Throughout the podcast, there were a couple of times where I thought they could have pressed Yang more on his political beliefs, but overall, I think it was a good podcast.
And run for mayor again, man.
Yeah, would you please? Run
Thanks,
for
guys.
something.
You know, if I do, you guys are gonna have to come campaign.
We'll open.
We'll do shtick for you. We'll do a fundraiser.
I'll do the free rent bit.
Oh,
out
my
of the
God.
Gate. All right.
I'll do the sucking ice cream chunk.
Yeah.
We'll have you.
Can't lose then. Can't lose.
We love you guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Andrew Yang.
Comedy.
Need to be here.